On February 20, 2026, western Pennsylvania awoke to a crisis that would soon grip the entire region with fear and uncertainty. As the first rays of sunlight touched the quiet towns along the Allegheny River, residents began their day unaware that nature was about to deliver a powerful blow. Overnight, the Allegheny River had stopped flowing. What was once a steady, life-giving current had become eerily still, as if time itself had frozen along with the water. A massive ice jam, stretching for miles, had formed a natural dam near Emlenton and Foxburg. The river, usually a symbol of tranquility and beauty, was now transformed into a looming disaster, its surface choked with jagged ice. Water, trapped behind thick car-sized ice blocks, began to rise rapidly. The pressure mounted with every passing hour, threatening homes, businesses, and the very heart of these riverside communities. The jam, especially severe at a dramatic bend in the river, was a force strong enough to halt the river's current entirely. The natural flow was replaced by a silent, growing threat. Residents who had always cherished the river for its beauty and recreation now faced anxiety and uncertainty. As the water crept higher, families watched nervously from their windows, wondering if their homes would be next. Local authorities and emergency services sprang into action. Firefighters, police, and volunteers worked side by side, monitoring the situation, setting up barriers, and preparing for the worst-case scenario. The focus shifted overnight from winter's beauty to urgent flood prevention. Sandbags replaced snowmen, and the sound of rushing water was replaced by the hum of emergency vehicles and anxious voices. The communities along the Allegheny found themselves in a race against time. Neighbors checked on each other, hoping the ice would break gently before disaster struck, but fearing the worst as the water continued to rise. The peaceful riverside life, once defined by calm waters and scenic views, was now overshadowed by nature's icy grip, a stark reminder of how quickly tranquility can turn to turmoil. As water levels rose behind the ice jam, the National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning for Emlenton, Foxburg, and nearby low-lying areas. This warning meant flooding was imminent. Residents needed to act fast. Emergency alerts blared across TV, radio, and phones, urging people to prepare for evacuation. The water was already seeping into basements and covering roads. Local fire, police, and government officials activated emergency plans, knowing the situation could escalate in minutes if the jam broke. The warning unified the community, transforming anxiety into urgent action. Residents braced for impact, following official guidance to protect lives and property. The region was now on high alert, waiting for the river's next move. Imagine a river in winter, flowing steadily beneath a blanket of ice. Suddenly, that peaceful scene is interrupted. An ice jam forms, which is a river's version of a traffic jam. Instead of cars, it's huge, jagged chunks of ice that pile up, blocking the flow of water and creating a temporary, natural dam. These ice chunks, sometimes as large as small cars, stack on top of each other, jamming together tightly. The river, which usually moves freely, is suddenly choked by this icy blockade. The result? Water can't get past the jam, so it backs up behind the wall of ice, causing water levels to rise rapidly, much like what happens when a bathtub drain is plugged and the water has nowhere to go. This backup can stretch for miles upstream, flooding low-lying areas, fields, and even entire neighborhoods. The pressure behind the jam builds, and the river's normal flow is completely disrupted. Ice jams most often form during late winter or early spring, when warming temperatures and sunshine begin to break up the thick river ice. As the ice weakens, it fractures into large chunks that are carried downstream by the current. These chunks can travel for miles before they hit a narrow bend, a bridge, or a shallow spot in the river. There they get stuck, and more ice piles up behind them, quickly building a massive, frozen blockage. There are actually two main types of ice jams. The first, called a freeze-up jam, happens at the start of winter when the river begins to freeze and ice forms in place, gradually building up and blocking the flow. The second, and often more dangerous, is the break-up jam. This occurs during the spring thaw, when large sheets of ice break apart and surge downstream, like the dramatic jam that once blocked the Allegheny River. The real danger of ice jams lies in their unpredictability. Sometimes water rises slowly upstream, flooding homes, roads, and farmland over hours or even days, giving people some time to prepare. But if the jam suddenly gives way, all that pent-up water and ice is released in a powerful surge. This wall of water and debris can rush downstream in minutes, causing catastrophic flash floods and sweeping away anything in its path. These events can unfold with little warning, leaving residents and emergency crews scrambling to respond. The speed and force of the flood can be truly devastating. Ice jams are nature's powerful, unpredictable dams, capable of causing both slow, creeping disasters and sudden, violent destruction. Their impact can reshape landscapes and communities in a matter of hours. That's why understanding how and when ice jams form is so important for anyone living near rivers in cold climates. Staying alert and respecting the power of nature's icy dams is key to staying safe along frozen waterways. Ice jams form when winter's deep freeze creates a thick river ice sheet, followed by a sudden thaw. Warm weather or rain cracks the ice, sending massive chunks downstream. The river's geography, sharp bends, narrow channels, or bridge piers, becomes the perfect trap. As the first pieces get stuck, more pile up, quickly building a solid growing dam. The process is rapid. Ice shoves under and over itself, making the jam nearly impenetrable. Water volume rises, pressure builds, and the river swells upstream. The Alleghenies jam near Emlenton was textbook cold winter, sudden thaw, and a river bend set the stage. Man-made structures like bridges can worsen the jam, anchoring the ice and increasing risk. The result is a volatile mix of weather, geography, and timing. Nature's recipe for chaos. When these ingredients align, disaster can strike with little warning. The most immediate and visible threat from an ice jam is the rapid onset of upstream flooding. As the river's flow is blocked by a wall of ice, water levels rise relentlessly, often with little warning. Roads disappear beneath icy water, homes are quickly surrounded, and farmland that once seemed safe is suddenly inundated. For many communities, this means not just property damage but also the loss of access to vital routes and resources. The sense of helplessness can be overwhelming as the water creeps higher, cutting off neighborhoods and isolating families. But the danger doesn't stop at flooding. Massive, jagged ice chunks, some as large as cars, can bulldoze through buildings, uproot trees, and tear apart infrastructure. The sheer force of moving river ice is enough to shatter windows, collapse walls, and leave entire structures in ruins. Unlike typical floods, the combination of water and ice amplifies the destruction, leaving behind a chaotic landscape of debris and shattered lives. In these conditions, rescue operations become incredibly hazardous. First responders must navigate swift currents and unpredictable floating ice, risking their own safety to reach those in need. The cold, fast-moving water can overturn boats and sweep rescuers away, making every mission a race against time and the elements. Even experienced teams face immense challenges, as the situation can change in an instant. The ice jam itself is a ticking time bomb. Immense water pressure builds behind the frozen barrier, straining the ice until it reaches a breaking point. Cracks appear, water seeps through, and tension mounts along the riverbanks. No one can predict exactly when or where the jam will give way, adding to the anxiety for those living nearby. When the jam finally breaks, the consequences are immediate and devastating. A violent surge of water and ice races downstream, sweeping away anything in its path: cars, trees, fences, and even entire buildings. The force of this sudden release can reshape the landscape in minutes, leaving destruction in its wake. This flash flood is not only fast and powerful, but it also arrives with almost no warning. Downstream communities may have only moments to react before the torrent hits. The combination of water, ice, and debris makes escape difficult and increases the risk of injury or worse. Bridges are especially vulnerable during these events. As ice piles against bridge piers, the structural stress increases dramatically. In some cases, the weight and force of the ice can threaten to collapse entire bridges, cutting off vital transportation routes and isolating communities even further. If a bridge fails, the resulting debris only adds to the chaos. Broken concrete, twisted metal, and shattered wood are swept downstream, increasing the danger for anyone caught in the flood's path and complicating rescue and recovery efforts. This is the dual threat of ice jams: slow, relentless flooding upstream and sudden catastrophic destruction downstream. It's this unpredictable combination that makes ice jams uniquely perilous, challenging even the most prepared communities and emergency responders. For those living near rivers prone to ice jams, vigilance is essential. Communities must monitor river conditions closely, heed official warnings, and be ready to act at a moment's notice. Preparation and awareness can mean the difference between safety and disaster. Beneath the tranquil surface of a frozen river, hidden currents and immense forces are always at work. The river's winter beauty conceals a destructive power, reminding us that nature's dangers often lie just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to emerge. In Emlenton, the ice jam was a direct threat. Residents faced evacuation orders from the volunteer fire department. The town's fire siren became the emergency signal. If it sounded, residents had to leave immediately for higher ground. People moved valuables upstairs, packed essentials, and checked on neighbors, especially the vulnerable. The community pulled together, sharing information and support as the river crept closer. Photos from the fire department showed thick ice pressed against some homes, water already invading backyards. The river, once a source of pride, now brought fear and urgency. Preparation was everything. Residents knew from past floods that waiting could be deadly. The town's fate depended on the ice jam's next move. Emlenton braced for whatever the river would bring. River bends and bridges are hotspots for ice jams. Sharp turns slow down ice, causing it to pile up and form blockages. The Alleghany's winding path near Emlenton, combined with the Interstate 80 bridge, created the perfect trap. Bridge piers act like strainers, catching ice and anchoring jams. This not only causes flooding upstream but puts the bridge itself at risk of collapse. Engineers monitor these structures closely, often closing bridges to protect public safety. The combination of a natural bend and a man-made bridge can turn a minor jam into a major emergency. On the Allegheny, this deadly duo transformed a winter event into a crisis. The interaction between river shape and infrastructure magnifies the danger. Understanding these triggers is vital for future prevention and response. The most dangerous moment comes when an ice jam breaks. All the pent-up water and ice is unleashed in a violent surge downstream. This flash flood moves faster than a normal river, carrying debris and massive ice chunks. Downstream communities may have only minutes to react. The force can sweep away vehicles, trees, and even buildings. Emergency officials keep warnings in place for miles downstream, knowing the threat can arrive suddenly. Predicting when a jam will break is nearly impossible. Temperature, water flow, and ice strength all play a role. Residents must stay alert and have evacuation plans ready. The breaking jam may relieve upstream flooding, but it creates a new crisis downstream. If you live near a river in winter, take ice jam risks seriously. Always heed official warnings. Evacuate immediately if advised. Prepare an emergency kit with food, water, medications, and important documents in a waterproof container. Have a family communication plan, and know your evacuation routes. Never walk, swim, or drive through floodwaters. Depth and current are deceptive and deadly. Remember, turn around, don't drown. Stay away from the river's edge and never go onto the ice. It's unstable and dangerous. Riverbanks can collapse, and a sudden surge can sweep you away. Monitor updates from authorities and stay on high ground until the danger passes. Preparedness and caution are your best defenses against nature's icy threats.